Good morning and welcome to our talent series event. We've got a few more folks that are coming in through the waiting room, so we'll give it just one more minute before we jump into our conversation today. As we are waiting to kick off, do want to remind you that we are recording today. We will make this video recording as well as the slides from today's event available online, and we invite you to use the chat as a place to share questions throughout the morning that we're here together. So again, we'll give it one more minute and then we'll officially kick off. Good morning. I'm Ann Hutchison, President and CEO of the Fort Collins Area Chamber, and I am thrilled to be hosting our 2022 Talent Series event this morning. And that is a presentation by Kristen Williams with Woodward around building talent in today's world. We are so excited to be able to offer this talent series once again to our business community. We had a spring series and now we're kickstarting our fall series and really creating resources so that businesses can learn from each other and look for fantastic ideas that you can implement into your own local system to be a strong employer. Our talent series wouldn't be possible without our sponsor. And as you can see on the slide, our 2022 Fall Talent Series sponsor is iHeartMedia. iHeartMedia is proud to be part of the Fort Collins business community and a sponsor of the Talent Series. iHeartMedia is home to 8 Northern Colorado radio stations, including 96.1 KISS FM, Big 97.9, 107.9 KBPI, and 600 AM KCOL. Additionally, they have digital marketing partnerships that help to drive consumers to your local businesses through streaming, mobile display ads, podcasting, and much more. Thank you, iHeartMedia, for your sponsorship. I am going to stop sharing my screen and introduce our speaker today. We are thrilled to have joining us Kristen Williams. Kristin is the Vice President of Human Resources Engine Systems at Woodward. She joined Woodward in 2011, and her first 10 years with Woodward, she was in Rockford, Illinois. We are so fortunate that in 2022, she relocated to Colorado in her current role, and we are just thrilled to have her here. In this role that she has with Woodward, she has responsibility for the HR of approximately 2,500 members across the globe. Incredibly thrilled to have Kristin and her expertise join us today. Again, we're recording. We will use the chat to ask questions, but mostly I'm excited to learn alongside all of you from Kristin. We'll turn it over to you. Kristin, you're on mute, so we'll have you. There you go.
Okay, let's try this again. Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here this morning. Thanks for the introduction. And can someone confirm you can see my screen? Yes, okay, perfect. Zoom is always a challenge. Woodward is a Teams organization, so moving into Zooms can sometimes trip me up a little bit. So as Ann mentioned, today I really want to take time to walk through Woodward's history. This last year has just been brutal with turnover and hiring. I'm sure all of you can appreciate that. It's like nothing I've ever seen before in my 25-year career in HR. It really requires that we think differently and employ different strategies than before. We can't just simply post an ad anymore and expect the people will come. It's definitely more of a hands-on and taking multiple approaches to making sure we're getting the right applicants. And then of course, training them appropriately. So in today's presentation, I'll take time to walk you through a little bit about Woodward so you can learn a little bit more about the company. And then I will talk a little bit openly about kind of the hiring challenges we've had and quite frankly are continuing to face and how we've adjusted our recruiting, hiring, and training philosophy. And I'm particularly going to focus on direct labor positions because that's probably been the most challenging that we've had over the last year since COVID. Please, as Ann said, if you've got questions, throw them in the chat. We'll have time at the end for open Q&A. So I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with Woodward's history. We were founded back in 1870, so 150 years ago. You know, when you stop to think about that, you know, I think of some of the large companies like GE. GE was founded in 1892. That always makes me pause that, wow, we've been here longer than GE. Campbell's Soup, 1869. So we're kind of about the same age, you know, as Campbell's Soup. Our industries are aerospace, industrial, military, power, and transportation. So we were founded by an inventor back in Loves Park, Illinois, which is right outside of Rockford, Illinois, and where I started my career with Woodward. And we were the Woodward Governor Company, and that was named after our inventor, Amos Woodward. People who've known Woodward for a long time occasionally will still call it Woodward Governor. I find that's less the case here in Fort Collins as it was back in Rockford. Amos invented and patented the first water wheel governor. It was the most efficient at the time. You know, 30 years later, the company expanded when his son Elmer patented the first mechanical compensating governor. And then we became kind of dipped our toe in the aerospace industry for the first time in 1933. So today we really are aerospace and industrial. And some snippets of Woodward. We have just over 8,000 employees, which we do call members. So you'll see me use that term interchangeably throughout the presentation across the globe. Our average tenure is about 10.5 years. I will tell you over the last few years, we've seen that number go down just because we've had an increase in retirements and a lot of new members joining the organization. So, and I do expect that the average tenure will continue to go down as we still have a high number of people eligible for retirement. We're $2.25 billion in sales for fiscal year 21. We just finished our fiscal year 22, so we haven't released those numbers yet. 29 worldwide locations, and actually we're probably up to 31 now, and I'll show that in a second. Aerospace and industrial, it's not quite 50-50. Aerospace is a little bit heavier. We do have both segments in the Fort Collins area. We've got 850 patents in force, 350 of those in the US and 500 outside the US. We talked a little bit about our markets. Our customers are really original OEMs and their direct customers. So the Boeing, the Raytheon, GE on the aerospace side, MTU, Weichai, Fortzilla, Caterpillar on the industrial side. It's a picture of all of our locations. And as I mentioned, we recently completed an acquisition the 1st of September, which added Australia and Singapore, which are not yet reflected on this graphic. So we are continuing to grow, growing both inside the US and outside the US. So why Fort Collins? How did we end up here? And I'm thrilled that we did because I've just relocated and I love the area. But you know, back in kind of after the Korean War ended, the Rockford, Illinois plant, which was at the time the headquarters, simply ran out of space and they needed a new facility. So they put together a team that was scouting locations, and they were specifically looking for college towns without a lot of heavy industry. And they narrowed the choice to 2 locations, Laramie, Wyoming, and Colorado Springs, Colorado. So Fort Collins was not on the list. But when they were out scouting these 2 locations, they had a stop in Fort Collins to visit an old friend of one of the people on the team. And that person just kind of asked, why not Fort Collins? And the team kind of said, why not Fort Collins? And the local chamber of commerce launched a campaign at that time to attract Woodward. And rest is history. January 1955 is when we opened our first location here in Fort Collins. I love old pictures, and unfortunately you can't read this very well, but this is a copy of the March 4th, 1955 edition of the Fort Collins Coloradian, and I probably said that wrong, welcoming Woodward. So I wish we could make it a little bit clearer, but I thought that was a fun graphic. As I mentioned, we started in Colorado in 1955, and we opened our first campus, which is the Drake campus. We expanded in 1992 with the Loveland location. In 2007 is when the headquarters moved from Rockford to Fort Collins. And there was a lot of different reasons for that move, but I will tell you it is much easier to attract executives and senior professionals to Fort Collins versus Rockford. I'm finding it a pleasant surprise that when I call now to recruit somebody and I say, hey, the position is in Fort Collins, I don't get a no thank you right away, which is often what happened in Rockford. In 2014, we established the engine systems testing facility in Windsor. 2016 is when we opened the Lincoln campus, and the corporate HQ actually moved into that new campus. Aerospace hydraulics moved to Fort Collins in 2019. And then we've got the establishment of the Windsor Technology Center in 2020, which we are currently adding to. So that's kind of a little bit of our history of Woodward and how we've come to be over the years. Today, we've got 1,561 members in Colorado. Majority of those are at the headquarter and Lincoln campus, which is side-by-side buildings, roughly just under 1,000 people at those 2 locations. In Loveland, we still have 98 individuals. We are working to exit the Loveland facility and incorporate those folks into our other facilities. In the Drake campus, we've got just under 400. In Windsor, we have just under 100, about 77. So that's a little snapshot of Woodward and our locations and where all of our members are. Okay, so now let's get into the real stuff. Hiring challenges. When you go back to COVID, none of us could have predicted COVID. In hindsight, we probably would have done things differently. But we did reduce our workforce with COVID, like many companies. We didn't know what was going to happen. We saw our volumes drop significantly, and we, reduced to reflect the lower volumes that we had to produce. When we started ramping back up, we needed to hire people, and that's where the challenges started. And then you couple that with what we've probably all come to know as the Great Resignation. I've heard the Great Reshuffle, the Big Quit, but turnover is higher than pre-pandemic levels and 25% higher. Woodward, we're actually seeing a little bit more than that. Now that's of course, across the US and different industries are hit differently. And then I've recently read 40% are somewhat likely to leave their current job within the next 3 to 6 months. Now, this was a data point from July. I think it was this morning's, might have been yesterday morning's Wall Street Journal. There was a comment in there that they're actually starting to see office workers less turnover just because of the unpredictability of the economy right now and the chance for a recession. So I'm happy that turnover may reduce because it is exhausting filling positions. The we've got all kinds of things as we're looking at hiring. Before COVID, we never thought about, at least I never thought a lot about remote work and how much people wanted to work remotely. How much people just decided they didn't want to work or didn't want to work full time. And it has just created many different challenges. When I look at the most jobs that we struggle with the most, it's really this handful. There's no job that is easy to fill right now, but these are the areas where we reduce staff the most at Woodward when our volumes went down for manufacturing. And of course, they're the ones that we have now, not only to get back to our previous staffing levels, but increase our staffing levels. So definitely in the supply chain area with scheduling, purchasing managers, supplier managers, logistics, which would be shipping and receiving, buyers, assemblers and machinists, and operations supervisors and engineers. So those are kind of if I had to narrow it down to a handful of jobs, those are the ones that we have had the most volume in needing to recruit and the most challenge in recruiting. Over the last year in our Colorado sites, we've had 85 individuals leave the company. We've got currently, I think it was as of Monday, we had 181 open positions in Colorado. We've hired 458 people. And on average, right now, it's taking about 67 days to fill an indirect labor position and 41 days to fill a direct labor position. So again, direct labor is going to be anybody who's actually touching the operation, assembly, machinist, technicians. Our indirect labor is going to be all your support staff. So your supply chain, your supervisors, your engineers. That is higher than normal. And there are some positions that take longer than others. I think one of the reasons it's not higher is because we do continuously try to advertise ahead of openings so we're constantly recruiting. So hopefully if we do have an opening, we have somebody in the pipeline already. I don't think this is going to be a surprise for anybody on the call, but when you look at the unemployment rate, it's 2.9 in Larimer County. When you look at last year, it was 4.7, and the average long-term is 4.32. So there's just less people that are unemployed looking for jobs, which of course reduces the number of people that are going to apply to your positions. The most challenging position that we've had is skilled labor, and particularly our machinists. And our need for machinists has increased because of the supply chain challenges across the world and needing to not only increase production to meet demand, but also to help some of our suppliers that have had to shut down or close due to COVID. And so we're insourcing more work, maybe work that was previously sent out for someone else to complete. The regional employment for machinists is higher in Larimer and Weld County than national average, which just means that we're already at a low unemployment, but the group that we're most particularly looking for is employed at a higher rate than others. So it's just kind of a double whammy for those of you that know prices. I think press your luck. October 2021, we had 155 machinists, and this week we're at 221. So even after COVID, we've added about 70 positions here in the Fort Collins area for machinists. And there were not 70 machinists sitting there waiting for work. So it has been a challenge. What I'm going to talk through next, and I'll talk about each one of these in more details, is increasing applicant pool and what we've done. There's not a golden ticket of, hey, this is what you need to do. There's many different ways to increase your applicant pool, and that really is going to kind of drive into how fast you can fill your positions. I like to think of recruiting as a numbers game. I know that for every 4 applicants, I usually will hire 1. So, and this varies by industry, but for Woodward, if I get 4 applicants for a position, I'm going to interview 2 of them likely, and I will hire 1. So that's just, if I've got to hire 30 people, I can do the math to find out how many applicants I need. So again, I'll talk through each one of these separately, but these are all kind of the different areas that we've adjusted and thought about in order to really increase that applicant pool. And maybe the first kind of fundamental shift that we made early on when we were hiring is moving away from looking for skilled labor to attitude and aptitude. And I'm not saying we don't value skilled labor, we absolutely do. And we still try to hire a mix of people with skills and people that have the attitude and aptitude, because we obviously have to train more if they don't have come with the skills that we're looking for. So for example, for a lathe operator, a grinder, a CNC machinist, we will look for some folks that are experienced, and then we will look for some that just have the right attitude and aptitude, and we know we can train them to become great career machinists or moving on to another position within Woodward. So when we talk about attitude, Woodward has a constitution, which is different from a lot of other companies, and that's been in place since 1970. And it really outlines kind of what our core values are as an organization. And it's respect, integrity and ethics, accountability, teamwork, customer satisfaction, initiative, and results driven. So when we are interviewing someone without any experience in the particular job they're applying for, those are the things we're looking for. We use behavioral-based interviewing, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. If not, ask a question, I can explain it a little bit more. But we use that philosophy and really drill into each of those different areas to make sure that they're going to be a good cultural fit to Woodward and uphold our values. And then we look for aptitude. You know, how can they learn? How have they demonstrated ability to learn? And what kind of mechanical skills or background may they have? It may not be, for example, it may not be a machinist if that's what we're hiring for, but maybe they've worked on cars or they've done robotics type things in school. There's all kinds of transferable skills that kind of give us a clue that someone can learn and excel in a different area. So again, by opening it up so we're not always requiring experience, we're really able to increase that applicant pool, which again, just gives us more candidates to choose from. Now, I'm sure you can imagine that some leaders were not overly thrilled that we were going to stop hiring for experience, because that means they are going to have to train better. And of course, you know, there is a prestige to having a skilled machinist or a highly skilled assembler. And, you know, so even some of our current employees, you know, it definitely is a shift that, hey, we're going to have to train. And what I like to remind people is we've all started with no experience. We've all had to learn at some point in our careers. And typically we've had somebody to help us do that. And we just need to be that mechanism that can help people learn and grow into the career of their choice. I'd be amiss if I didn't talk a little bit about diversity. You know, we are very consciously, when we are advertising, when we are recruiting, when we are interviewing, looking to add diversity to our organization. We still are a primarily white organization in the Fort Collins area. And that is something that we are consciously working on changing and bringing more people in. And that does mean that we're relocating folks. We're targeting specific schools, for example, as we're recruiting, to make sure that we're continuing to embrace diversity and inclusion within our workplace. Okay, so let's talk about social media. You know, nowadays you can't not post on social media. I personally don't do social media other than LinkedIn because I feel it kind of sucks time, but depending on the demographic of person that you are looking for, you have to post on social media. So we use Instagram and Facebook. We don't use LinkedIn for direct labor positions because we found it doesn't really, that's not the target audience for LinkedIn. For all of our professional positions, we do post on LinkedIn, and that is the number one source that we are recruiting from for professional positions. But for direct labor positions, really we post on Instagram, we post on Facebook. We get more luck from Facebook, and what we do is we ask our members to share on Facebook so it kind of gets out. We have been trying to use some geofencing and targeted ads. I'll be honest, we've had mixed success. We keep trying and tweaking the formulas, but so far it hasn't yielded any great results. I think partnerships is the other thing that we look at, and we are continually looking at different partners, referral sources where we can work directly with an organization to get applicants. We're working with organizations such as Harvest Farms, Department of Veteran Affairs, Homeward Alliance, the Colorado Fair Chance Hiring Initiative. And then of course, we're partnering with the schools as well. So the community colleges, the local high schoolers, and organizations such as Manufacturers Edge. But we don't put all of our eggs in one basket. We do try to look at multiple sources. And I know we have a recruiter that's specifically looking at where can we build those partnerships to make sure that we're getting good referrals and getting our name out. If anyone from a temp agency is on the call, this might be a little controversial, but I'll share our experience. We did move from a temp to hire model to a primarily direct hire. And that is nothing against temp agencies. I think that there's an absolute place for them. But in this economy, what we found is that people are willing to leave a job for another full-time job, but they weren't looking to necessarily leave a job for a maybe, even if it was a temp to hire. So the quality of candidate we were getting was not what we could recruit directly. And that's really why we made that shift. We have found that our turnover since we've started hiring directly and not gone through temp to hire has decreased dramatically. So it is proving out to be the right solution for us at this time. I do think that as we stabilize and as the unemployment starts to increase again, we will go back to a temp to hire model. During COVID, we had to reduce staff and we had to reduce full-time staff. The beauty of having a part of your labor as contingent helps manage those ups and downs in the manufacturing volume world, and less impact on full-time members, and there is also, it's great to try before you buy. You can often find out if somebody's going to be a good fit, and if they're good at the job before we make them full-time employees. But in today's economy, it just wasn't the right solution for us. The other thing we've started doing more of, we've always relocated full-time professional positions, indirect labor positions. That's not new, but we have started more relocation with direct labor machinists particularly. And because again, there's just not a surplus of them here in Fort Collins waiting for a job. What we did is we looked at kind of where is the talent, what's the best place to recruit from. We evaluated our relocation policy and kind of, do we do a full relocation, which can often be upwards of 6 figures of cost, or do we do a lump sum? And what we've found is that many folks, especially early in their career that maybe are not settled with a house, are perfectly happy with a lump sum to move. So we have had really good luck with that. And typically we're doing a $10,000 lump sum for individuals moving to the area. And then of course we have a 2-year repayment on that. We are leveraging a third party in addition to doing our own. And there's the third party that we're using is a company that specifically specifies in relocation of skilled labor. So they will go out to the market, find where people are, what areas are people underemployed in potentially, and do campaigns targeted at them. And then that augments our own internal recruiting, where we're going out and kind of doing the same thing. So we've relocated a great, I don't want to misspeak, but maybe a dozen or so people in the last year, in skilled machinists, highly skilled, and it's really paid off. We don't relocate folks with attitude and aptitude only, just because we can find those folks currently within our own communities. Next thing we've done is kind of some recruitment events. And I actually took a snapshot of the actual post that we did on Facebook when we were advertising this, in case it's helpful to anyone. But we have started doing both more job fairs, which, you know, we've always done those, but we've also done just hiring blitz days. So what that means is, you know, this one was targeted on machinists. We've also done it for supervisors and other positions, but really putting out an advertisement and just having open hiring events. This particular one that I'm showing you out from the end of July, I believe we hired just under 20 machinists at that job fair. And, you know, they've all started. We didn't have any fallout from them, and it's been really great. We do offer a $1,500 sign-on bonus, which I'll talk about shortly. But, you know, as soon as we made an offer, we made them on the spot after they interviewed and toured the facility. We tell them, okay, now you're eligible for the referral bonus. Go bring your friends. And many of them actually did send their friends back later in the day. That just kind of let us build up a little momentum there. Contract hires, so a little different than the temp agencies. When I'm talking about contract hires, I'm talking about kind of the equivalent of the traveling nurses. So everybody, I think, is familiar with traveling nurses after COVID, where, you know, you have a contract and you go and work in a certain location for a period of time, and then you leave and you go work in another location. They do the same thing with skilled machinists. So we have about 25 contract machinists right now within Woodward at our headquarters facility at Lincoln campus. And really, we're using that to bridge the training gap, because as we're hiring people with no skills, it takes them longer to train and get up to full productivity. So these folks are highly skilled, you know, in their field. They can help train, but they can also just help production while we're working on focusing on training. So it increases our production capabilities. It, again, bridges that gap with labor shortages and helps speed up the training. So we found great success with them. They are very expensive, so it is not a long-term strategy, but for a short term, it's helped us get where we need to go. Talked a little bit about referral bonuses. I think this is the best trigger we have been able to pull. $1,000 for any Woodward member that refers somebody that gets hired. So, and there's no limit. So if you refer 12 people, we will pay you $12,000. And that, they're recruiting for us. That has helped us get more applicants, but it's just another means to increase that applicant flow. We don't hire everybody that's referred. They still have to go through the interview and selection process. But this does really motivate our employees to go out and spread the word about Woodward's hiring. Sign-on bonus. So you can't go anywhere without seeing sign-on bonuses. It is a way to lure people around out of their current job and think about something new, especially with, you know, people making probably under $50,000 or so. We're finding that's even more motivating for them of, hey, you're going to be able to get a check in for $1,500, which is our typical sign-on bonus. That motivates them to consider leaving a job. So I put the language in there again in case it's helpful for anybody of exactly the language we use in our offer letters. We do require repayment of if they leave within 2 years of their hire date. Then I want to talk a little bit about total rewards. So as we continue to evolve with what people are looking for, we've really kind of bucket our total rewards into 3 areas. The first is the foundational. So foundational is talking about, your base wage, how much are you making per hour, healthcare, life insurance, the things everybody expects from their job. Then we talk about performance-based, which are your annual merit increases, any discretionary bonuses. And then career and environmental, so member development, training, can someone see a career path? So these are areas that we have evaluated over the last year. We are continuing to evaluate and make sure we're meeting the needs of today's, job applicants and retaining those that are already here. For example, we recently communicated that we're starting a paternity leave, so everybody will get 8 weeks of paid time off. So that's something that we're seeing in the marketplace that's necessary. I know not every organization can do that, but looking at what you can do, that's what your employees are looking for. I think that the key takeaway here is there's not one solution. It is many different things, and figuring out how to increase that applicant flow in order to hire the best candidate for the job. I don't know if we're ever going to get to the point like we were in the past where you could just throw an advertisement out there and people would come. It is different, and I think it's going to continue to evolve, but looking at all your different opportunities and making sure you're kind of chasing down different areas that you can attract people. So as I talk about, we move more to attitude and aptitude, then we have to beef up our training. You can't hire unskilled workers and not have a good training program. So, the old kind of standard is, you hire somebody new, you put them with Joe, who's been here for 50 years or, 40 years, that might be a little long, on a machine, and you say, Joe, teach Sally how to machine. And Sally watches Joe for a while and over time learns how to do it without a whole lot of formal documentation or, process. It's just partnering people up. You learn on the job, you learn as you go. And let's face it, some people like to train and some people don't. So if you get stuck with somebody who's maybe not wanting to train, you can imagine that experience isn't going to be great for a new trainee coming in. So we really have tried to shift from that old OJT concept to more of a classroom concept to start with. So this is absolutely a work in progress, but what we have done is created a dedicated hands-on training center. So we started with kind of a 1-week onboarding with all shop floor workers attending. And what they would do is learn kind of the basic systems that we have, our processes, our quality standards, depending on the group, how to work with others, especially if it's a group of maybe recent high school graduates. We have 17 to 20 people in each training, and you'll see there's different benches that they go through. So really they're learning, instead of on the job with a real part, they're learning on fake parts and with somebody who wants to be training versus somebody who might just be told to train somebody. And of course, it standardizes the approach. So everybody's getting the same standard training versus being reliant on how good the person that you're paired with is. I've got a little snippet in the bottom corner there of a worksheet. What we have is, for everything that we train on, we are developing kind of, these are the things that you need to know. So, you need to know how to set a measurement, how to measure something, what the quality process is, any particular PPE required when you're doing the process. But again, just to help drive that consistency with training experience. It is a mix of classroom, hands-on like you're seeing here, as well as some self-paced learning. So over time, we are continuing to build our training out, and we've added what we're calling skills tracks. So the first week is everybody is attending, they're getting the same information. The second week is where we start to split off, and machinist is learning some things, an assembler is learning others, production workers, And then the next one we're looking to build is logistics or shipping and receiving. It is continuing to evolve. It is not perfect by any means. So I think of this as a journey. We are going to just continue to make it better. The feedback from employees who've gone through this is extremely positive. They feel like they are hitting the ground running when they get let into the shop and start working on real machining. Now, we still are pairing them with somebody, so that OJT is not gone by any means. Maybe it will be at some point, but it is not today. But we are trying to pair them with people who really want to train and who understand what they've already been through, so they can augment that instead of starting from ground zero. So when we talk about, kind of all of this, we can't not talk about member engagement, and retention particularly. We have to reduce the turnover, because otherwise this is going to be a continual cycle of hiring. And that's not the intention. We want to get back to a stable workforce. I do hope that, the attrition slows. We are running about 18% attrition right now across the Colorado sites. Historically, we've always been under 10, which both numbers are fantastic for manufacturing. So we're still ahead of the curve, but it is not where we want to be at any level. So from a member engagement standpoint, we're trying to really do activities that it does what it says: engage the members, make sure they're feeling included. We've done, the movie nights, family picnics. Tomorrow we have a dunk tank where they can dunk their supervisor, and bringing some kind of taco truck, to give everybody, a reward for finishing our year end. So doing things like that to just continue to make sure the members are being heard. We also do regular roundtables where the leader sits down with the members to make sure we're hearing concerns, good and bad, so we can continue doing the things that we're doing well and getting positive feedback on, and identifying opportunities where there's room for improvement. So it's really providing that forum for members to make sure they're able to voice their concerns. And we do that with a direct supervisor, as well as kind of a skip level where it's the supervisor's supervisor meeting with a person. We are continuing to build our internal training. So not only what I just reviewed with kind of the different tracks that we have, but also, other leadership training. If people want to move on to a different area, what is that path to get there, and making sure that we have a good career path, so folks feel like there's opportunity beyond what they're currently doing today. And then retention, especially with, as we're getting new folks in, and especially diverse candidates, making sure that they are happy to be at Woodward and that we are retaining them once they maybe move into our communities, and how we can continue to do that. So again, understanding why people stay, understanding why people leave, and helping to try to build some strategies to change that trajectory. And with that, we can open it up if anybody has any questions.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Kristen. There was so much there that is powerful and insightful for all of our business partners on the call today. I'll kick off some questions while I'm hoping everybody else will be thinking about anything they might want to ask. But I'm very fascinated by this idea of hire for attitude, and then you train for aptitude, and your actual creation of a training facility within your organization. Can you talk a little bit about, how did you get to that financial decision, and how is the math working for you when it comes to that investment in your future workforce?
Sure. So we actually started this concept back in Rockford. So where I'm originally, the facility I originally was in, and we started that back in 2015, I believe. And we were at that time building an entire new facility, expecting to double our workforce, and similar situation without COVID of we need to make sure we can train and have a skilled workforce ready. So instead of, knowing you have to hire 600 people over a short amount of time, you think, how are you going to ingest those folks into the workplace? And one of the things that we did is, you know what, training, when you're training constantly on a production line, you're taking away time from actual producing work, because you've got somebody who's normally producing that's now doing half training, half real work. And so you're slowing down your throughput. So by taking that training out of the product line and that OJT, it really set kind of the standard of, hey, we can do this. And it worked, quite frankly, so well that we have now expanded that across the rest of the sites where we do have these training facilities. And it's definitely mirrored after some of what we've done in Rockford, but every site is slightly different. But we have found, I can't quote numbers to you right now, but it is definitely paying off, and we are definitely continuing to invest in that area. And I think when you think about hiring dedicated trainers, we've got 4 dedicated trainers, I believe, right now in the Colorado area, but they're training 20 people at a time. So 4 dedicated people versus 20 people at halftime, kind of being paired with somebody, it's just much more efficient.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that insight. The other question I'll ask, again, inviting all of our participants to join into the conversation. I was fascinated to hear that the traveling nurses concept has grown beyond healthcare, and that you now have traveling machinists. Can you talk a little bit more about any other industries you're seeing that happen in, and how in the heck do you find a traveling machinist to maybe bring into your shop?
Yeah, so there are specific organizations that do just this. And I don't want to quote names. If anybody wants to reach out to me directly afterwards, I will be happy to share our experience and the companies that we utilize. But there are companies that specialize specifically in skilled trades. And they've been around for a while, but they've definitely picked up steam since COVID. And the reason some of these companies were kind of born is because when union shops go on strike, they need a contingent labor. And so they would call a company like this and have a ready-made workforce that can come in and help maybe kind of cover if there was a strike or a work stoppage of any sort. Now, of course, that's grown and changed, and that's not necessarily their primary focus anymore, even though they still do things like that. But there's definitely people that love to, go someplace new, take a 6-month assignment or a 3-month assignment, just explore the world and work. And like I said, they're getting paid very well. So it's kind of a win-win. I have a friend who's a traveling nurse. I know she loves it, and why. And that's kind of what made us think about, okay, there's got to be other organizations that do this. And sure enough, there are.
Wow. Who would have guessed? Tremendous insight. Thank you. Let me pause for a moment to see if, again, any of our attendees want to come online off mute and ask a question. Well, I'm guessing everybody is scrambling to capture all of the tremendous insight that you shared today, Kristen. Let me give you one last opportunity. Anything else about this journey, really, that Woodward's been on over the last couple of years relative to balancing too much workforce, just enough workforce, and just enough experience? Any other insights or encouragement that you would offer to our attendees today?
I think it's a don't give up, continue trying new things, because something is going to stick. And with the kind of constant change that we have today, what works today may need to be changed in 3 months. So I think just being agile to understanding what your target applicant pool is looking for, and making sure you can explain how to offer that. I'll share, remote work is a hot topic across many industries. And for a while, kind of maybe even at the beginning of 2022, if I was interviewing for a job, literally the first question I would ask or state is this position requires you to be in the office. Are you comfortable with that? And it was a conversation stopped for probably 50%. I don't ask that question first anymore because, we've gotten better that we advertise specifically that it's hybrid and what that may mean for the positions that can be hybrid. So people are a little bit more in tune to it. And I've seen people are looking for a little more hybrid now than they were, even 8 months ago. And who knows how that's going to change in the future.
Yeah, great. Well, again, thank you, Kristen, so much for joining us today. We appreciate the fact that Woodward is an important corporate partner here in Northern Colorado, and the fact that you're willing to share your insights with our larger business community. It's an incredible gift, and we appreciate it tremendously. We'll go ahead and wrap up today's Talent Series event. Do want to make sure to share with this group that our next Talent Series will be on Thursday, October 13th, and it'll run from 11 a.m. to noon. Our topic is how to radically define and reinforce your culture. Mark Weaver, the owner and CEO of Open Door, will be joining us for that presentation. That registration is live on our site right now, and that site is fortcollinschamber.com. Certainly check it out if you are interested in joining us for either this next session or any of the others. Finally, again, everything from today's presentation will be posted also on fortcollinschamber.com. And that includes the video, slides, and certainly if you found some insights that were powerful today, reach out to the chamber and we can absolutely connect you with Kristen to learn more and grow more. Thank you again for joining us all. I hope that you have a fantastic day. Thank you, Kristen, and we'll see you all at our next event.